Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be breaking down the ending scenes of episode 4 of The Once It Lives. Let's talk about it. So we're going to pick up after Rick and Michonne have had their adult time, and Rick is still given his line of he needs to stick with the CRM to keep them safe and keep Michonne and Judith and RJ safe and everyone back home. But we can tell there's more to it than that, and Michonne can see right through him. You know, she can tell that there's more to this, and she asks him, "What did they take from you? What did they do to you? What did they take from you?" And with a little bit of sobbing, you know, and breaking down and more pleading, and you know, Rick finally gets to the heart of it, and he says that they took Carl. And you know, we know that Carl died years before this, but he's talking about he was able to fight the situation. He was able to go into his dreams or go into his head, and he still had Carl there. And the more he got defeated and the longer he was there, the less he was able to pull back on Carl, the less he was able to see Carl, until one day Carl was gone. And that makes sense along the lines of the story, because the artist says that he couldn't describe Carl good enough to get an image, you know, or to draw Carl for him. He could never get it quite right, is how the artist says it. Now, I know it's going to get kind of personal. If you've never experienced that kind of loss, you might think that the memory wouldn't fade like that. But, so, yeah, but it's possible. Trust me, I know. So I have, this is a little bit about me. I have 2 daughters, and, we're good now. We're good now. But, around the time that COVID started, they were teenagers, and, they didn't like rules that we had in my home. And, they went for a weekend visit. I raised them. They lived with me their whole life. And they went for a weekend visit, and they just never came home. And they wouldn't talk to me for years, and I had no contact. And it wasn't because I didn't want it. I desperately wanted it, and I saw them everywhere. One of my daughters is really short, and every time I saw someone about that size, I saw her. My other daughter she's the type of person that gets really excited when she talks, and she'd bounce a lot, and she always had her hair up. And when I think of her always with her hair up in a ponytail. And when she would get excited and she would talk, her ponytail would bounce around. And anytime I was somewhere and I would see someone about her age that was jumping around and had a ponytail, I always saw her, and I saw them everywhere. Rick says that, you know, as time went on, he was able to see Carl less, and he started dreaming of Michonne, and that's what helped him get through. And then eventually she faded and she was gone, and said he had to find a way to die and keep on. And you know, I understand that, because that's how I felt when my daughters were gone. You know, I understand that, what he went through, and I think that's the reason this episode struck such a chord with me. Because, you know, I mean, I have a son and I have my wife. We have my daughters have a different mother, and when they left, you know, I still had them, but it was such a gaping wound that was just gone, you know. And I didn't know how to express that, but I had to keep going, and I had to find a way to keep living, but deal with that immense loss. And so yeah, I understand what Rick's going through here. I hope this personal stuff isn't too much for you. If it is, I really apologize. But I'm just telling you why this episode it really hit me on a personal level. And it was just very emotional for me. Rick also explains that the reason he was pushing Michonne away was he couldn't bear losing her again. That if he sent her home, whether she, you know, it's like if he sent her home, whether he doesn't say this, but whether she made it or not, in his head she could still be alive, and he didn't have to face losing her again. And again, I'm gonna put some of my personal stuff in there. When I first started making contact with my daughters again, I was terrified that if things went the way they did again, and I lost them all over again, I didn't know I didn't know how I could do that and survive. So, I really understood what Rick was talking about there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And again, I'm sorry for the personal stuff. This is supposed to be a breakdown of that scene, but I wanted to express, I wanted to be able to share with you why I got that scene so well and why that scene meant so much to me. This is my favorite episode of everything Walking Dead related. Favorite one, just because we made this connection. And but anyway, as Rick is having this breakdown and he's talked about not being able to see Carl, Michonne gives him a phone. She had the artist do a portrait of Carl, and it gives him Carl back. But I don't think it's the phone that does it. I think it's just his connection with Michonne, just the love they have for each other, and her bringing him back. Because she never, she started to leave, but she couldn't make herself leave. She never really gave up on him once she found him. She never gave up on him. I also thought this was such a beautiful way to bring Carl into this story and to honor Chandler Riggs. Because, his character, in my opinion, was just done dirty. He was killed off the show when he shouldn't have been. And can you just imagine what he would have been able to add, that character would have been able to add to this story, like if he'd been able to go with Michonne, But it was just, I was touched to see that they honored Chandler in this way, Because when you think about The Walking Dead, the story really is Rick's story. And Rick's story is Carl's story. Because Rick was all about just protecting his family. And Denai, who wrote this episode, my gosh, it was a masterpiece. Just in writing. She deserves to win awards. And you may disagree with me. That's fine. This is my opinion. You're free to have your opinion. And we can be nice to each other. We can respect each other's opinion, even if we don't agree with it. And just like that, old Rick was back. He had the swagger in the hallway when they were killing the walkers together. It was just... It was so great. It was like seeing an old friend. That's the Rick that we were wanting to see. We saw it a little bit in the premiere episode. We saw it a little bit in the flashback when he first, I guess, got out of the hospital and had his intro into the CRM when he was talking to Jadis. But this is the first time we see old Rick with Michonne, and man, it was so good. So the two, they fight their way out of the building. They get in the elevator together, and you can just see that confidence, that swagger with Rick. And this is the Rick that Michonne. This is the Rick that Michonne went to find, and we wouldn't have seen this Rick if it hadn't been for Michonne. Michonne brought him back, and I don't mean that she's bringing him back to Alexandria. She brought him back from the prison that he was in inside his own head. She brought him out of that. And it was just so great to see. And then we get to see these two amazing characters. And they're in the truck. They're getting ready to leave. And Rick says that about we can make this whole world ours. Or whatever the line is. But it's a callback to something that Michonne said in a previous episode when they were going against the Saviors. And like after all of that heavy emotional stuff, Denai slips a joke in, and Rick can't drive the truck because it's a stick shift, and he doesn't have the arm that he needs, so they have to jump. They have to switch places in the car, and that was really just a funny scene to kind of give us a break from all that emotional stuff, and Rick had come through to the other side, so he's better in a lot of ways. He's moved past that trauma, and he's come out on the other side. And I think that joke was there to kind of let us know that. And then we get the last scene. It's Michonne looking in the rearview mirror and seeing the building come down. And the symbolism there is just... Well, it's not the last scene, but it's one of the last scenes. See, the symbolism there is amazing because just as Rick's wall came down, he was able to... God, what am I trying to say here? The wall, the building coming down was like Rick's walls coming down, and him being able to get through his trauma and let Michonne in. It was just a really neat visualization of Rick coming back, I think is what I'm trying to say. And then, of course, they drive off in that yellow truck with some happy music playing. But sadly, we know this is The Walking Dead, and things don't end happy. So I have some anxiety about how this is going to end. I love these characters, and we're just going to have to wait and see what happens next. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. It was one of my favorite scenes in any Walking Dead episode. And if you want to see more of my content, you can click the box on the left, and that will take you to my The Ones Who Live playlist. You can sub so you don't miss any future content, or you can click the box on the right, and that will take you to one of my most recent uploads. And guys, I will see you in the next video.